April 23rd, 2012, 11:47 p.m., Matewan, West Virginia. Sheriff Danny Morrison sat alone in the county records room, the fluorescent lights buzzing like a distant swarm. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he barely noticed, his eyes fixed on a crumbling file labeled Blackwater Mine Incident, 1962. Dust coated his fingers, smudging the yellowed pages as he read. Growing up, he'd heard the story whispered at family dinners. 17 miners lost in a methane explosion, Matewan's darkest day, a tragedy etched into the town's bones. But the name on the victim list stopped his breath. James Patrick Morrison, lead foreman. His grandfather. Danny's family swore James died of a heart attack when Danny was 12. Not in a mine. A handwritten note, clipped to the report, scrawled by a deputy long dead, read, "Investigation incomplete. Discrepancies noted." Another hand, Sheriff Hawkins ordered, "Case closed." Outside, the mountain air hung heavy, the silence pressing against the windows. Danny's pulse hammered. By opening this file, he just kicked a hornet's nest that powerful people had guarded for 50 years. What secrets are buried in your hometown, waiting for someone to dig too deep? Stay with us. This is about to unravel. Matewan, West Virginia, was a town carved from coal and hardship, its narrow streets winding through mountains that held both fortune and peril. In 2012, Sheriff Danny Morrison, 38, was its steadfast guardian, broad-shouldered, with a quiet intensity and a habit of checking every detail twice. Danny was the kind of cop who read every line of a report, no matter how trivial. 3 years into his term, he faced a backlog of paper records cluttering the county's basement. Decades of property disputes, traffic citations, and budget logs dating back to the 1940s. The new digital system meant sorting, scanning, or shredding it all, a task Danny tackled after hours when the courthouse was quiet, and he could think without interruption. The basement storage room smelled of mildew and old paper, its shelves sagging under the weight of cardboard boxes. Most held routine files, land deeds, petty theft reports, faded receipts for courthouse repairs. Danny worked methodically, his flashlight cutting to the dim corners, sorting the mundane from the essential. Late one night, past 10 p.m., his hand brushed a thick folder wedged between a stack of 1960s traffic tickets and a box of maintenance logs. The label read Blackwater Mine Incident, 1962. It felt heavier than it should, as if the pages carried the weight of unspoken truths. Danny set the file on a scarred wooden table, the only workspace in the cramped room. The incident report was typed on an old typewriter, the letters uneven, some keys smudged with ink. The header read Mingo County Sheriff's Department, April 23rd, 1962. Location, Blackwater Mine, Route 52, Matewan, West Virginia. Incident, industrial accident, multiple fatalities. The report described a methane gas explosion at 11:47 a.m. in the mine's eastern tunnels, collapsing 3 shafts and trapping 17 miners. Rescue teams, it claimed, couldn't reach them. All were presumed dead. The list of names followed, each one a gut punch. Henry Caldwell, 42, driller. William Henderson, 35, loader. Robert Garrett, 29, mechanic. James Patrick Morrison, 31, lead foreman. Danny's grandfather. His family never spoke of James working in the mines. His father, John, always said James built houses, a construction man who died of a heart attack in 1972. Danny was 12 then, too young to question the story, but old enough to feel the hole it left. The file contradicted everything. Why the lie? He flipped further, finding black and white photos. The mine entrance, its mouth dark and jagged. Rescue workers in hard hats, their faces grim. Men in suits, company officials or government, hard to tell, talking to reporters. A settlement agreement caught his eye. Cumberland Coal Company paid each family $5,000, a fortune in 1962, but the speed was staggering. The explosion happened April 23rd. By May 15th, every family had signed and the mine was sealed. Industrial accidents, Danny knew from experience, dragged through years of lawsuits and investigations. This was wrapped up in weeks. A handwritten note, clipped to the report, stopped him cold. In neat cursive, Deputy R. Collins wrote, Investigation incomplete. Recommend further inquiry into company safety protocols and timeline of events. Several discrepancies noted in witness statements. Below, in a heavier scrawl, Sheriff Hawkins had added, "Case closed by order of Sheriff Hawkins. No further investigation required." Danny's jaw tightened. Why shut down a probe into 17 deaths? A sealed manila envelope, labeled Cumberland Coal Evidence, held the answer. Inside were geological surveys, dense with technical jargon, and diagrams of mineral deposits. One phrase repeated, high-grade uranium ore, estimated value $2.3 million per ton. In 1962, at the Cold War's peak, uranium was a strategic asset, fueling nuclear arsenals, billions in today's dollars. Had 17 men died to hide a fortune? Danny's radio crackled, pulling him back to the present. Sheriff Morrison, State Mining Office, wanted a meeting about old safety records for a federal audit. He stared at the surveys, the names, his grandfather's among them. "Tell them I'll call back," he said, voice steady but mind racing. He locked the file in his truck and drove to the Blackwater Mine site on Route 52, 20 minutes from town. The road was a ghost, potholes and weeds reclaiming the asphalt. A rusted gate hung open, a faded sign reading Cumberland Coal Company. Authorized personnel only. Red spray paint added danger. Keep out, the letters dripping like blood. The mine entrance loomed, sealed with thick concrete and steel beams, dated April 24th to 25th, 1962, days after the supposed explosion. Rescue efforts should have lasted weeks, not hours. Danny snapped photos of the dates, the overbuilt seal, and scattered papers half buried in leaves, time sheets, safety logs, left behind in a rush. As he circled the site, a figure watched from the tree lean, tall and thin, baseball cap low. Danny raised a hand, but the man melted into the pines. Someone was guarding this place. 50 years later. Why? What secrets in your past are worth watching from the shadows? You're starting to feel it, aren't you? The pull of a truth too big to stay buried? The Blackwater Mine site was a relic of a bygone era, its industrial skeleton softened by 50 years of neglect. Rusted rail tracks snaked through the gravel, coal fragments glinting under Danny's boots. The main office's concrete foundation stood bare, its building long gone, stripped or collapsed. Papers littered the ground, faded time sheets, safety reports, personnel files, abandoned in a hurry, not secure like a company would normally demand. The sealed mine entrance dominated the landscape, a fortress of concrete poured thick, reinforced with steel beams in a crosshatch pattern. This wasn't a standard closure. It was a vault, built to keep something in or out. Danny's flashlight traced the dates stamped into the concrete. April 24th, 1962. April 25th, 1962. The explosion was April 23rd. Why seal a mine while rescue teams were supposedly digging for survivors? Back at the sheriff's office, Danny spread the file across his desk, the yellowed pages glowing under his lamp. He called the West Virginia Department of Mining Safety, reaching Betty Mason, a clerk with 30 years on the job. "Blackwater Mine, 1962, he said. "Explosion, 17 dead." Betty's voice crackled through the phone. "I'm not finding anything for Blackwater in 62. No incident report, no fatalities." Danny gripped the sheriff's report. "I'm holding the county file. It's detailed, names, dates, everything." Betty typed, then paused. "This is odd. Cumberland Coal's records show Blackwater closed April 22nd, 1962, the day before your incident, listed as administrative closure. No reason given." Danny's mind reeled. No state record of an explosion. A mine closed before it happened. What was Cumberland hiding? He called his father, John, at home. "Dad, how did Grandpa really die?" Silence stretched. "Why are you asking, Danny?" John's voice was tight. "I found a file. It says he died in Blackwater Mine, not a heart attack." Another pause. "Some things are better left buried. Son, your grandfather's gone. Let it rest." Danny pressed. 17 men died, Dad. Their families were lied to. John's tone sharpened. "Drop it, Danny. Trust me." The line went dead. Danny stared at his phone. his father's warning echoing. But he couldn't stop. He started tracking the victims' families, Henderson's, Caldwell's, Garrett's, names tied to Matewan's history. Phone calls to old neighbors, town council members, and church groups hit the same wall. They moved away right after the incident. Haven't seen them in decades. House has been empty since the 60s. 6 families relocated out of state by late 1962. 3 moved to distant West Virginia counties. 8 vanished. No tax records, no death certificates, no trace. In a town where families stayed for generations, this was deliberate erasure. At home, a modest ranch house on Matewan's outskirts, Danny sat on his porch with beer and his laptop, searching public records. The family's absence was a black hole, swallowing entire lineages. His phone rang, an unknown number. Sheriff Morrison, I'm Carl Hutchins. Heard you're asking about Blackwater. Meet me at the diner on Route 119, 8 p.m. Come alone. The call ended before Danny could respond. The diner, shuttered for years, sat 10 miles north, its neon sign dark, its lot lit by flickering sodium lights. Danny arrived early, sweeping the area for threats. A single pickup truck idled near the entrance. At 8 o'clock, Carl Hutchins emerged from the shadows. 73, white-haired, face weathered like the mountains, but eyes sharp with memory. They sat at a picnic table, Carl pouring coffee from a thermos. I was 22 in 62, a miner at Blackwater, he said, voice low. Called in sick April 23rd, food poisoning. Should have been with your grandfather, James. Good man, fair boss. Carl's hands shook. There was no explosion, Sheriff. Those men were shot, murdered in the tunnels, buried behind concrete. He'd driven to mine at noon, feeling guilty for missing his shift. From behind an equipment shed, he heard gunshots, dozens, like a war underground. Men in suits, not miners, emerged with rifles, hauling boxes into unmarked trucks. Sheriff Hawkins and Cumberland Supervisor Harold Vance directed it all, concrete trucks rolling in by dusk. Why didn't you report it? Danny asked. Carl's laugh was bitter. To who? Hawkins was in it. Vance owned half the county. It was 1962. Cold War. People who talked disappeared. He slid 8.30-06 shell casing across the table, military grade, and a geological survey circled in red. High-grade uranium, $127 million. They killed for that, Carl said. Headlights pierced the darkness. A dark sedan creeping into the lot. Carl stood. They're still out there, Sheriff. Be careful. He vanished into the night. Who's watching your moves, waiting to silence you? What's worth killing for in your town? Danny drove to his parents' brick ranch house, the porch light casting shadows. His mother, Ellen, answered in her bathrobe, worry creasing her face. His father, John, stood behind her, grim. You need to leave for Charleston. Stay with Aunt Sarah, Danny urged. John's eyes darted to a sedan parked under a streetlight. Your grandfather found something in that mine. Uranium, maybe more. He refused their money, their relocation. They killed him for it. Danny's chest tightened. How many knew? Everyone suspected, John said. But families who asked questions, like the Hendersons, whose house burned with Martha and her kids inside, ended up dead. Danny slipped away to his great-aunt Ruth's house, a cluttered home on the industrial district's edge. At 86, Ruth's hands trembled as she handed him a tarnished brass key, number 247 etched into it. James documented everything: uranium, government orders, murders. It's in a safety deposit box at First National Bank in Logan County, under Patrick Morrison. Danny arrived at the bank at 7:30 a.m., parking 2 blocks away in the morning mist. By 8:45, 2 men in suits, federal agents, entered, flashing badges to the manager, Mr. Patterson. Danny approached the teller, key in hand. I need access to box 247, Patrick Morrison. The teller hesitated, glancing at the agents. It's a homicide investigation. Danny said loudly, bluffing. Agent Crawford's voice cut through. Sheriff, that box contains classified materials. Danny pushed past, descending to the basement vault. He opened box 247, revealing James Morrison's letter. Photos of mining operations, geological samples in cloth bags, and execution orders on government letterhead. The letter detailed Blackwater's rare earth elements, worth $10 billion today, used for advanced electronics and weapons. Miners, aware of the find, were offered relocation. James refused, documenting the truth. On April 23, 1962, federal contractors executed them. Crawford's team stormed the vault, weapons drawn. Danny threw a sample bag, shattering the lights. In darkness, he and Patterson crawled through a pneumatic tube system to the drive-through window, emerging in the parking lot. News helicopters, tipped off by an unknown source, landed, cameras rolling. Danny held up James' letter on live TV. My grandfather was murdered to hide a $10 billion conspiracy. Deputy Williams radioed from Blackwater. Found 17 bodies, gunshot wounds, and more documents. Crawford shouted, but the cameras kept filming. State police and real FBI agents arrived, arresting Crawford's team. Williams added, Carl Hutchins is alive, in protective custody. He says this goes beyond Blackwater. Dozens of sites, hundreds of victims. What would you risk to expose a truth this dangerous? Who's still hiding, waiting to strike? 6 months later, Blackwater Mine was a national reckoning. The FBI recovered 16 bodies, all with execution-style gunshot wounds, corroborating Carl Hutchins' account. James Morrison's body was never found, likely buried elsewhere to erase his defiance. His hidden documents, stashed in the mine in the bank vault, exposed a conspiracy spanning 8 decades, with over 300 victims across Kentucky, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Tennessee. Cumberland Coal faced $12 billion in lawsuits, and Agent Crawford awaited trial for murder. The James Morrison Transparency Act mandated oversight of federal resource operations, ensuring no more secret killings. At the mine's memorial, granite etched with 17 names, Danny stood with Carl Hutchins, now free from hiding. Families reunited, mourning promptly after 50 years. A message from Deputy Collins' daughter hinted at more evidence, suggesting conspiracy's roots ran deeper. Justice was unfolding, but untouchable officials hid behind immunity. Danny knew the fight wasn't over, but his grandfather's truth had broken free, carried by a small-town sheriff who refused to let 17 men die in vain. What secrets in your world need someone stubborn enough to dig them up? Share below. The truth's not done yet.